Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker is directed by J.J. Abrams, who directed Episode 7, The Force Awakens.
And this movie stars Daisy Ridley, Adam Driver, Oscar Isaac, and John Boyega. I said Boyega's.
Boyega?
Yeah, so just want to clear things up real fast. If you happen to stumble upon our review over The Last Jedi, we gave it a way too high of a grade. I think we gave like 70 or 80%.
Yeah, I think I gave it 70. I can't remember what you gave it.
I can't remember for sure. I just know it was a decent grade. Yeah. And so I just want to clear that out of the water and say we do not like that movie anymore. Honestly, while watching The Last Jedi, it was kind of a thing of me kind of almost forcing myself to try to like it, because I understood that the movie just felt awkward in general, you know, but it wasn't until later that I kind of started thinking about it. I was like, you know, it's really not a good movie.
Yeah, it kind of ruined characters. It kind of just threw away a bunch of stuff that was set up and didn't really do much. It didn't just throw that stuff away, but it did nothing with it.
Yeah, and if you know anything about the behind the scenes with what happened, I don't know if any of y'all even like Force Awakens. I personally love The Force Awakens. And what happened is that J.J. Abrams, he wrote Force Awakens. He had a whole plan for The Last Jedi, if that's what he was going to call it. Or,
episode 8.
He had a whole plan for the whole trilogy. He had a whole plan. And whenever it came to episode 8, The Last Jedi, is whenever Rian Johnson, or however you pronounce his name. I've heard it pronounced in several different ways, but I'd say Rian Johnson. But Rian Johnson came and scraped the whole thing off. Yeah. He scraped it completely.
It's like one of the only times I didn't agree with the studio giving a director complete creative control over a movie. Yeah. Which is kind of funny because our last review on our channel is a movie directed by Rian Johnson, Knives Out.
And so that movie really just took away and kind of just scraped away everything that J.J. Abrams was obviously setting up. I understand that people don't like The Force Awakens, and to be honest, I know I'm not supposed to be talking about these movies, but whatever. I want to talk about it. I like The Force Awakens a lot. Some people don't like it, and their main thing is they like to say like, what is it? Like it copies A New Hope or whatever, you know. But I feel like there is a few very popular franchises that actually kind of do the same thing. If you've seen any reviews, you'll see that a lot of people really aren't liking it.
Yeah, I think it has like a 50-something% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, I think it's gone a little bit up.
Yeah, which isn't like which isn't like a terrible grade. Yeah, you know. But to me, I honestly didn't see what people were. I did not hate this movie at all. I didn't even not like it. I liked it. I actually liked it pretty decently.
Yeah, I do have some major issues that we'll get into later, but overall I did like it. Like, people way over exaggerated how bad this movie was, or how bad they thought this movie was. I feel like Star Wars fans kind of, if a Star Wars movie isn't great, then they act like it's like the worst movie ever made.
Exactly.
It's like they're so biased, and it's like kind of ridiculous on how biased a lot of fans are towards Star Wars.
Yeah, and I do have a belief that may be controversial. You have two sides of Star Wars fans. You have the complete Star Wars fans who just love every Star Wars movie, right? And then you have the Star Wars fans that are only a fan of the original trilogy and aren't going to like anything outside of that. Right? And, you know, obviously not everybody's like that. You do have your original trilogy fans who are non-biased. They might like something else. But to me, those two extremes, they fight with each other, but they're the exact same.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah. They're just letting biases get in the way of actual reasoning on the subject. I don't necessarily want to take off that many points for some of the ways that it falls, because I feel like some of the ways that it falls is not the fault of J.J. Abrams at all, because there are some things that are just an issue because there was no other choice. You know, because how The Last Jedi set everything up. If you purposely did not watch a trailer, didn't read anything about it, I'm about to bring up something that's a slight spoiler if you never even saw a trailer. Right. And that is that Palpatine is in this movie. Right. Yeah. So, and I think a big issue with that Palpatine being in this movie was one issue I had with this movie. But I don't really want to necessarily take off that much for it because it's not J.J. Abrams' fault.
Yeah, I feel like I understood why they had him in it, And I kind of liked how it helped explain something that had to do with Rey, but I feel like he shouldn't have been in the movie, like actually in the movie.
Yeah.
I feel like that kind of diminishes the end of episode 6 if he doesn't actually die in that movie.
Yeah. Not only that, but you have the thing of Snoke, and obviously
Right.
Snoke was going to be probably
the big
yeah,
villain.
it was going to be what Palpatine was in this. It was going to be the big villain, obviously.
Yeah.
But then Rian Johnson scraped that, and so like J.J. Abrams was like probably trying to figure out what to do, and he just Palpatine.
Right.
And I'll say this: I'll say he did good with it. The fact that he had to figure out something.
Yeah.
He figured that out, and he did good with it.
Right.
But the fact is that when you're watching it, it kind of takes away from how connected this new trilogy is, because you have this big bad of Snoke in the first 2 movies, right? And you think that's gonna be it, and then out comes this movie, and then it turns out Palpatine's the big bad now.
Right.
And so it kind of makes this movie a little bit more disconnected from the other 2 movies.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And it would have, like, obviously they couldn't have done that because I'm pretty sure Palpatine wasn't planned to be in this movie, even though they might try to say it was planned. But it would have really helped if he was hinted at in the episode 7 and 8, and then it would have been a good reveal in episode 9. I still wouldn't have liked it that much that he would be still alive, but it would have worked a little bit better than just randomly popping up in this movie.
And the fact of the matter is, you can walk into this movie wanting it to create a great trilogy, and fix everything the second movie did, but it doesn't. It's not going to. What things that happen in the second movie, it's hard to change everything that happened completely.
Yeah.
What you have to do is you have to walk into this movie and watch it as itself,
Right.
and nothing else. Because I feel like a lot of reasons why people are kind of not liking it is because a lot of issues that were created by The Last Jedi.
Yeah, and I feel like Last Jedi kind of left a bad taste in a lot of fans' mouths. So like they went to this movie already in a negative attitude.
Yeah.
And so this movie wasn't great. So it was pretty terrible.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can just walk into this movie, just don't expect. I don't want to say don't expect anything, but hold it to a standard.
Yeah.
But don't hold it to such a standard that you're like, oh, well, since Last Jedi happened, this is stupid because now these problems, Because at this movie's core, it's damage control.
Yeah.
Completely. At this movie's core, it's a movie of damage
Should
control.
have been called Star Wars Episode 9 Damage Control.
Yeah, exactly.
And some of the stuff they did to do damage control actually was pretty genius in my opinion. But I feel another thing that I feel is that this movie would have benefited a lot from being split into 2 movies.
Yeah.
Especially with how much damage control they had to do. It really made things feel rushed, even though it's like a 2.5 hour movie. It did a lot of things felt rushed, and some things happen that you just have to accept that they happen, just because you know that they're trying to fix some things and try to tell a story at the same time.
Yeah. Especially the first half of the movie. I especially feel like that could be that could have been a movie on its own.
Oh yeah.
I don't know where they could have split it up at.
Yeah.
But the first half of this movie was so weirdly edited. In my opinion, it was terribly edited because it was just bouncing around from over and over again.
Yeah.
It was like they're trying to get a lot done, but they didn't know exactly when to jump from someone else and how long to keep on them without losing momentum.
Right.
So they would edit it to where it would be like Rey says something and then edit, and then all of a sudden Kylo Ren says something and edit again over here, and it just kept bouncing around. It was just weirdly edited. You really got to give J.J. Abrams props because this movie is not complete garbage. It's decent, and you have to give him props for not only damage control, but the fact that Carrie Fisher died.
Oh yeah. Before they even started filming this movie.
Before they started filming this movie, when she died before Last Jedi came out.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So she died before Last Jedi came out, and so they weren't able to film anything with her in it, and everything that they had in this movie with her. It's all scenes that were filmed from The Last Jedi.
Yeah, unused footage.
Yeah,
which they did that pretty perfectly.
Yeah, they really did.
I mean, obviously, it's not the best thing ever.
Yeah, it's a tad obvious at times, but they did what they could have, and they did it in the best way they possibly could have done it. And honestly, a lot of things they did in this movie was probably the best with it. Not the whole movie itself, But a lot of things they did in this movie was some of the best ways they could have done it. A lot of the decisions they made, you know, in regards to damage control, especially, and Carrie Fisher, just all of it's, you watch and you're like, you know, I really can't think of a better way they could have done it. You know, maybe here and there, but overall, you know.
Right. And I do also want to bring up that the visuals in this movie are probably one of the best I've seen in a Star Wars movie by far. Especially there's this one scene, it's kind of shown in the trailers, where there's a lightsaber fight, surrounded by water, like waves and everything. And that whole scene was just gorgeous.
Yeah.
The entire movie was just amazing to look at.
Yeah. And there is, I will say that there is one CGI scene where they CGI two characters.
De-age.
Yeah, I don't know if it's de-aging because de-aging. Yeah, it's more towards CGI.
Right.
I mean, maybe it is de-aged with one of them.
That's true. Yeah, it's probably CGI.
But it's probably CGI. The first one that they CGI was all right. Yeah. It was okay. It was all right. But the second one was pretty terrible.
Yeah, it was one of the worst I've seen.
Yeah, it was pretty awful. And I really don't know why they did it the way they did, because with the character, they showed the character's face in complete brightness in the entire face.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it's not like a huge part of the movie.
Yeah, it's only like 3 seconds, but still.
Yeah. I do feel like this movie, I felt the time. The time didn't really go by in this movie. I kind of felt the time on it, you know. Not horribly. It wasn't horribly boring, you know. There were certain moments. Anytime this movie, they're in a camp, there's a camp. And anytime it switches to those scenes, I feel like it kind of slows down quite a bit. And it kind of just drops in momentum. And you're kind of just sitting there like, okay, let's get to the other stuff now.
And another thing I really loved about this movie, which really something I loved about this entire new trilogy, 7, 8, and 9, is that the relationship between Kylo Ren and Rey, and Kylo Ren especially, his character is one of the best things that came out of this trilogy by far. But Rey even in this movie, I liked her character in this movie a lot more than I have in the past 2 movies. I mean, maybe not a lot more than The Force Awakens, but it was definitely some of the best I've seen of her character.
This movie really did have some really good acting overall. Adam Driver, like you're saying, his character, the characters are really good.
Yeah. But just Adam Driver, if you haven't seen Marriage Story, go watch that.
Yeah.
It's honestly rivaling Joaquin Phoenix for Joker in my opinion for this year for the Oscar.
Yeah, exactly. Adam Driver is a fantastic actor, and I really think they picked him perfectly for this movie. I really do feel like everybody is picked perfectly for these movies, like great acting. But on top of that, a lot of people don't like the story for this either. I didn't mind the story. I thought the story was fine. It never felt, I mean, there's sometimes maybe it felt a little weak, but that might have had to do with the damage control and a few things here and there. And especially, like I said, the beginning of this movie really is fast-paced and badly edited, so it's weird. And once I got past that, it was like, you know, the story's actually kind of decent. You know, and it gets to certain points whenever it comes to the interaction between Rey and Kylo that actually made this movie extremely interesting. You know, and just the characters themselves. I mean, you have this movie where characters are battling themselves while also battling each other. You know, you have Rey and Kylo. They kind of are in a battle against each other in some ways. You know, but that also forces them to have these battles within themselves. You know, and so I really think a lot of that really makes these characters and the story really interesting, you know, and it really makes some of these characters some of the best characters in Star Wars. And probably another big issue that I have with this movie and just pretty much this trilogy in general is I feel like Finn is one of the most wasted characters in a movie of all time. One of the most, because and you have the Force Awakens where he's the only one that we know of that is a stormtrooper that's turned good. The only one we know of, you know, and like the only one anyone's ever seen. This is the first stormtrooper that's ever turned good. And you're thinking like, oh, that's awesome. Maybe he'll actually do something.
Right.
And of course, he had his chance in the second one where they stopped that because he's about to like give his life and.
Yeah. And they also had Captain Phasma, who was his leader. Stormtrooper, that they could have had some awesome dynamic between those two throughout the entire trilogy, but they did absolutely nothing in the 7 and 8 and then killed her in the episode 8.
Yeah, exactly. And so in this movie I was hoping like, okay, maybe he'll do something. And they bring up something to answer a question, I guess, of like a question that kind of I've been wondering myself, and it kind of answered it. But like whenever it comes to him actually doing something of high worth, I mean, sure, he does stuff that's helpful, but really he's just any other character. That's all he really is. He's just a character. And even though I love the character of Rey, I think she's a great character. One of the best characters that we've had in Star Wars, in my opinion. I do feel like her power, she's a little tiny bit overpowered in this movie at times. A lot of people said that about The Force Awakens, but in my opinion, some of her powers that she had in The Force Awakens weren't too unbelievable. Because people are like, well, Luke Skywalker, he didn't know anything when he was being trained. He wasn't strong at all. Well, that's because he was a weak person. Like, I'm sorry, guys, but Luke Skywalker, I mean, you know, original trilogy is great, but let's not even act like Luke Skywalker wasn't one of the weakest, annoyingest characters in A New Hope. You know, let's not even act like it. He whined a lot. He had parents. I mean, he wasn't like rich or anything, you know, but he had these parents that would help him out a lot, you know. Rey started off on her own from the get-go. She had no parents. She was a scavenger, right? Yeah. And she really was just on her own, a self-sufficient character from the get-go. You know, someone that already has a little bit of power, you know, in her own right from the beginning. And so to think that she can gain a little bit, to get powers a little bit faster than Luke, it really isn't that, you know, hard to believe in.
Right. Yeah, and I also do want to say, not going to go into spoilers obviously, but I feel like the end was kind of anticlimactic to me, which, I mean, it definitely went big. Yeah. One could argue it went a little bit too big. Yeah. But I felt like the end of the climactic battle was kind of anticlimactic.
Another kind of smaller issue that I had is I do feel like this movie tried to do kind of on the nose callbacks, a little too on the nose at times. Sometimes they're a little there and it's kind of cool, you know, but like overall there's a lot of times where it's like, okay, that didn't need to be there, okay, that one didn't need to be there too much. You're like, that one was okay, but overall there were a little too many times where it's kind of like, okay, yeah, like I get it, yeah, good job. I also watch Star Wars, thanks. Well, overall, guys, this movie, I'm gonna say, I mean, you may think differently, you probably will. I would say don't completely listen to people on this one. I do think that a lot of people just have a bad taste in their mouth from The Last Jedi, and also just the fact that this movie did have to do a lot of damage control, and so some of it stuff like problems they really couldn't even fix. So that's still part of this. That's still part of this movie, the problems they couldn't fix. But I feel like this movie really did a great job with trying to fix those little details and trying to do all this stuff. Because if you think about it, it's a really hard movie to make. It was a really hard movie for J.J. Abrams to make, and I really got to give him props to it. It's also pretty awesome because there's a lot of times where it just seems like J.J. Abrams is just giving Rian Johnson just a really big fat middle finger.
Right, yeah.
Like at times.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a little more obvious than others, but it's pretty great every time I notice it. But yeah, I feel like, I mean, we talked a lot about our negatives on this movie, and it's kind of really hard when a movie's just pretty good and not really good or great. Mm-hmm. It's pretty easy to talk about a lot of the negatives that we have in it. But overall, I felt like this was a pretty decent movie. Definitely nowhere near as bad as people made it seem going into it. Like you said, they did a lot of damage control. Like, I mean, Last Jedi, they killed Snoke off, who is going to be the big bad of the trilogy. They made Rey's parents nobodies. There's a lot of things that The Last Jedi just like left this movie with nothing to work with. So like, there's a lot of stuff that they had to build back up in just a one movie. Yeah. That needed to be a conclusion to the trilogy.
Yeah, exactly.
So and also Carrie Fisher dying, who's a big character in the Star Wars universe. So you have to do a conclusion for her character without having any footage shot. This movie is just a huge obstacle for J.J. Abrams to overcome, and I feel like he did it pretty well.
We are going to say that Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is 70% awesome. Well, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, comment and let us know what you thought about Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. And just go ahead and like rank your all 9 Star Wars movies, you know,
the core movies.
Or like the Christmas special, or anything.
I mean, you can throw that.
Yeah, if you want to, you can rank all of them. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Rank all the movies if you want to. Also, I understand if you hated this movie and we really offended you by this video, because we didn't hate it as well. I hope you would be civil in the comment sections and we can have a discussion. I'd be fine with it.
Oh, and also something we forgot to mention is that we graduated
Oh
college.
yeah, that's cool.
Last week.
We
we have our bachelor's degrees now.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah,
it's nice that we graduated in the same semester and how that worked out. But anyways, don't forget to like. I'm stealing your job.
Yeah.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at 2 Awesome Men.
And as always, thank you so much for watching, and you will see us later.